Welcome back to Kinguin for Charity #3 Spring Edition, benefit being held for Child's Play Charity, an organization that helps provide games and toys to children who are in hospitals and don't otherwise have access to them. If you'd like to learn more about Child's Play Charity, you can visit childsplaycharity.org. And if you'd also like to make a contribution, we encourage you to do so. We are getting closer to our goal that Monk has set for us at $2,000 a day. You can follow links in chat or links below the stream if you'd like to make your contribution and show how much you really care for children who are in need. So thank you guys so much for for joining us today. We have finished our first 4 matches of the day. I had a little oatmeal on my mustache. We finished our first 4 matches of the day here with RDU versus Kaldi. It was Nyria versus Strifecrow, Lothar versus 6-0, and Show versus Firebat. And all of our matches ended in 3-0 with RDU, Nyria, Lothar, and Show being victorious in those. So moving on to our top 8. And our first round in the top 8 is going to be Amaz versus Lifecoach. What a match we have in front of us. Amaz yesterday had some excellent play going through his match, and Lifecoach came back from a 0-2 deficit versus Alchemist. I fear that if he had played today and been down 0-2, that he might not have gotten such a strong performance out of it. What do you think is going to be happening in this match?
Yeah, I guess Lifecoach was lucky to play. The luck of the draw was on his side in that he was able to play on the first day and he wasn't 3-0'd as so many of our players have been today. About this upcoming match, Amaz versus Lifecoach, I think the key card in this next matchup will actually be the Black Knight that we've seen Amaz run in his previous decks. We saw it in at least Warrior and Hunter, and it's probably going to be in Druid as well. In Amaz's games against Masan yesterday, we saw in the final game of the series, Amaz closed it out with an epic Black Knight against Masan's Druid the Claw, and the swing was just so big that it instantly won him the game. Now, why is this so important? I think it's important because Lifecoach is actually going to be bringing Handlock to this tournament, and Handlock is a deck that is extremely vulnerable to Black Knight. Lifecoach is actually running 2 Sun Furies and 2 Defender of Argus. In addition to that, he's running 2 Sludge Belchers, so there's so many targets for Black Knight, and that card, if Amaz draws it in any of his decks, will make a huge impact.
Yeah, I think Hunter's already going to match up well versus Handlock a lot of times, just the amount of early pressure it has coupled with Savannah Highmane. But when you throw Black Knight into that mix, it really is putting a lot of pressure on Handlock. And I think just on Lifecoach in general, he's a player who likes to play super efficient costed cards. And Sludge Belcher, I anticipate, is going to be in pretty much all of his decks. Just because that's the kind of player he wants to play. He wants to take control of the board. He wants to protect himself when it's necessary and kind of dictate the pace of the game via stuff like Sludge Belcher and just just the cost-efficient stuff that he's playing. He wants to pose problems to his opponent and force them to deal with them. So Black Knight coming into play in 2 of these decks, I agree with you. I think it's definitely going to be the key card to look out for and how much of a difference it's going to make in this matchup.
Yeah, of course, Lifecoach's lineup is Warlock, Mage, and Paladin. Besides Mage, which is going to be the Mech Mage, his Paladin is also a deck that kind of mirrors the mentality of the Handlock. It has just a lot of big threats. As we see, he's not running a typical Paladin deck. He's running a very high curve with 2 anti-Killbots, 2 piloted Sky Golems, and he's just very threat heavy. It's a very late game deck, and Lifecoach is a player that thinks to the late game. He thinks a lot at every turn, and he is a player that I think he favors the control matchups a lot more. And with decks that are higher curving, he's going to be very favored in these control matchups. So just playing to his strengths with his deck choices, I think.
I would definitely tend to agree with that. And something I want to note on Pilot Sky Golem is how much of an impact I think it's going to make if he plays against something like Warrior with it, and how little of an impact it's going to have if he plays against something like Hunter with it. I feel like his Paladin deck is not very well equipped to actually deal with Hunter. Even the mid-range style that Amaz is going to be bringing, and it's simply because he has such a high curve. So if he fails to fight off early pressure, he's going to fall way far behind. I think it was yesterday we actually saw him lose a game to face Hunter, even though he started with coin shielded minibot into shielded minibot. And the reason he ended up losing was because he had such a high costed curve. He ended the game with like 2 piloted Sky Golems in his hand. Everything in his hand was just clunky, and it wasn't able to actually do anything to fend off what was being thrown at him. So I agree with you. He is certainly favoring control styles. And I think when he heads into a tournament like this, he's kind of having the same mentality from the other player's perspective as well. He's like, these are professional players. They play extremely well. They're going to want to get into situations where they have the ability to make more decisions. And when that's taken into account, from Lifecoach's perspective, he wants to gear his decks to be able to fight that sort of play as best as he possibly can. And I think that's why you're going to see such a heavy and top-end curve for Lifecoach.
Yeah, as you've been saying, like the Paladin you think is going to match up very well against the Warrior, but it's not going to match up too well against the Hunter. So I think the matchups that are going to come into this series are going to be very important. If Lifecoach just throws out the Paladin in the first match and he's able to defeat Amaz's Warrior, that's going to be a huge win for him. But just judging by that, do you think he's going to want to start off with a more well-rounded deck or something that's more geared towards a specific matchup like the Paladin?
I imagine Paladin's going to be a strong start for him, but Lifecoach also, he plays a little bit more predictably in his starts in that he tends to just play whatever deck he thinks is his best deck, at least so I've noticed. He's played a lot, like when Miracle Druid was sort of his thing, he just led with Miracle Druid in almost every single match, simply because he just thought it was the best deck. And in this match, I simply think he's going to lead the Paladin simply because he thinks it's the best deck. Or rather the best deck against a lineup like this. So if that's what he's thinking in terms of lineups, Paladin I think is a good start for him. I think it's favorable against two of these matchups, and against Hunter. If your Paladin loses to Hunter, it's like you're kind of expecting it to lose to Hunter anyway. So if you happen to get that matchup, it's okay. But it really just would not surprise me to see him lead with Warlock or Mage, and I'm curious which one of these he thinks is more powerful. I'm gonna guess it's the Mage because he doesn't typically like to play aggro decks. And Mech Mage is in his lineup. So if he's playing it, that is a really, really heavy consideration on his part. Just be like, this strategy is so powerful that I just have to have it if I want to win tournaments more often than not. So to see him lead with Mech Mage, that would probably be, if I had to pick one, I think I'd be picking Mech Mage.
Yeah, I think Mech Mage is a deck that a lot of players will be favoring to lead off with. It's just kind of to test the waters to see what my opponent is going to bring in his first match. And if you win the, if you win the first match, you're pretty happy with that. But if you lose, you still have Mech Mage, which is a deck that can just take off games off of anything. So in either situation, I think you're going to be fine. Now, what about this handlock from Lifecoach? I was actually casting the Root tournament, which was also a Conquest format. And the first match I casted was Teray versus one of his opponents. And Teray actually brought handlock to that tournament. And unfortunately, he got 0-4'd with handlock. So it might be that this handlock deck might be Lifecoach's weakness in this lineup, because it can be a deck that can go 0-4 with, but at the same time, it's a very strong and powerful deck. So I feel like it could go either way there.
There's a potential that handlock's in his lineup simply because it's a comfort pick. It's a deck that he has a ton of practice on, and that he puts a lot of faith into its decision-making ability, and that he feels like most of the time your decisions are going to be impacting that matchup more often than basically anything else. That was kind of the case yesterday too. We saw him play handlock, and he played it extremely well, even in a metagame where I think most people would tend to favor something like Demon Lock right now, simply because of the curve considerations, and for the fact that Big Game Hunter has been showing up in so many decks that that's just a situation you want to avoid. But he's been playing against that really, really well. And so it doesn't surprise me to see him play something like handlock. And again, it was sort of the same, like towards the end of the season, at DreamHack Winter, he played Miracle Druid, and Miracle Druid was basically consensus among a lot of the professionals that I spoke with, just not as good as Face Druid was. There was really no reason to end up using it, but it was such a big comfort pick for him, and he was so confident in his ability to make better decisions than his opponent that he chose to play it anyway, and it led him to a top 4 finish.
Yeah, top 4 finish. Yeah.
I mean, just a testament to his confidence in his own ability. I think that's really his greatest strength, is his confidence and understanding.
Yeah, I definitely agree there. Lifecoach is always a player that has gone a bit against the grain. When everyone else was playing whatever they were playing back in the day, Lifecoach was like, I'm going to play this Hunter class. No one else plays it, but I'm going to make it the best class in the meta. He did that. He got rank 1 with it on NA, got rank 1 with it on EU, and eventually everyone followed his lead, and it was the Hunter that came out on top. And speaking of Hunter, we're actually going to see a Hunter at least in this match, but it's going to actually come from Amaz, I believe. No, it's going to come from... Yeah, it's going to come from Amaz.
Yeah, Amaz, I think, is really playing into Lifecoach's semi-predictability here. I would have liked to see him lead with Mech Mage here, but I can understand why he leads with handlock. And again, it's just such a big comfort pick for him. So having Mech Mage in his lineup, I think, does kind of throw players a wrench where there is a decision to make now. It's not just Lifecoach is going to play the same old deck he always plays first. He is at times going to have other potential leads in his lineup. So this time, I think he's a little bit caught here, because as far as I can tell, this matchup is just brutal from the handlock side.
Yeah, I think even though it is typically brutal, I think it's a little better now that Undertaker is not a thing. And also, Amaz is going to be playing more of a mid-range hunter and not of like the face hunter that we typically see from players such as Sixo, Chalky, or even Kalento. The mid-range hunter, it's a bit slower, so that gives Lifecoach a lot of time to stabilize with something like the double anti-kill bots in his hand right now.
I do have a different take on this with that Undertaker comment, is that I think when you take Undertaker out of the equation for Hunter, it has to adapt the way it ends up playing its strategy. So you see a very polarized shift in opinions, where some people are going to play face Hunter and other people are going to play like these mid-range control style Hunters, where I expect there to be a copy of Hunter's Mark. We see a copy of Black Knight in his hand right now. Lotheb can potentially come down turn 5. All of these cards can really shut off a lot of the counterplay and anticipation that Lifecoach is going to have moving into these later turns, and I think that's where Amaz is finding his advantage.
We see actually some pretty good starting cards in Lifecoach's hand. He has the Ancient Watcher, he has a Sun Fury Protector, he even has Hellfire, excuse me, Hellfire and Twilight Drake on future turns if he chooses to play them. I think he can either potentially Life Tap or Ancient Watcher this turn. If the Ancient Watcher it gives him a potential of 2 minions to taunt up on turn 5, but he's just looking at his hand right now. A good turn 5 would also just to be playing the Sludge Belcher, so that might lead into his consideration of not playing the Ancient Watcher here, just getting some more cards and perhaps throwing down the Ancient Watcher and Sunfury on the same turn later on.
I think given that he might want a Hellfire next turn, he is going to lean towards life tapping, and I would tend to agree. I think that he also knows that this is a mid-range. I'm sorry, it's a mid-range hunter and not just like a face hunter, so paying a few points of life isn't going to be the worst thing in the world, and I think if there's a time that he has where he can actually do that, it's now.
Unfortunately, this board really isn't that Hellfireable.
Right.
Not too many things in the Hunter these days actually are that vulnerable to Hellfire, except perhaps the Knife Juggler.
Yeah.
The Mad Scientist, you can kill it, but it still pops out a secret. Haunted Creeper is extremely resilient to Hellfire, and just stuff like Misha even. You need really his second Mortal Coil in order to kill off the Misha if you want to play the Hellfire.
Yep. So Amaz really diligently saving his coin here, and I like that because he's got Black Knight in his hand. On turn 5, he's going to expect to see Sludge Belcher a lot. So going into Amaz's turn 5, when he has that coin, he's able to counter it with Black Knight and move forward from there. He doesn't have Iron Beak Owl for this Twilight Drake, though. That could be a bit of an issue. We saw yesterday, Amaz, did he have 2 freezing traps or did he have 1 snake and 1 freezing?
I'm not sure if he had a snake, but I believe most lists these days, if they play a snake trap, then they're going to also play 2 freezing traps. I think freezing trap is just so great in the metagame right now that you can't really afford to cut 1.
Yeah, so we can get a glance at that secret. That'd be great. Freezing trap is almost certainly, I think, what it is at this point, just given the way that Amaz has actually played this game. If this wasn't freezing trap, this would be an excellent bluff.
Yeah, and just judging by that attack, Amaz looks so confident that he would get a freezing trap from this Mad Scientist that I believe Amaz is only playing 2 freezing traps in his deck right now as his only traps.
I think so as well. I think you're very likely to see a Sludge Belcher this turn, and if you don't see a Sludge Belcher, you're going to see probably Ancient Mantra and Taunt. There's a chance I think you see Anti-Killbot, but I don't think it's a very large one.
Yeah, you pretty much just want to save your Anti-Killbots for when you're pretty much about to die, and plus like Sludge Belcher is just such a much stronger body right now.
Yep. We'll get a little bit punished for the Sludge Belcher though, so he's going to choose to go with 2 taunts here. I think that 2 is probably better than 1 in this scenario, especially when you're staring down a freezing trap. This Twilight Drake is otherwise stuck, so the Sun Fury Protector is going to be a good sort of aggressive maneuver against the freezing trap, and at the same time you still have enough gas on the board that you can protect yourself.
Yeah, the Sun Fury is. I think the Sun Fury play instead of the Sludge Belcher play was just essentially to play around this freezing trap. If the Sun Fury comes back into Lifecoach's hand, that's just awesome. Normally, you don't want stuff to be freezing traps, but the Sun Fury, the value of the Sun Fury is not in its body, but rather in its effect. And it's essentially like, if it comes back in your hand, it's essentially just a Defender of Argus, slightly worse, but you really don't care too much about the buff from Defender of Argus anyway.
pretty careful turn from Amaz here. If he had Iron Beak out, this would be like one of the cleanest turns he could possibly have. It's not available to him, so I think this is going to be about the best Black Knight he's going to be able to get.
He's also probably considering something like Unleash the Hounds with the Knife Juggler, but that doesn't really get you too many clean kills at this point.
Yeah, I don't think you can really hope for more than 7 damage from a Black Knight. That's where my mind's at right now. I think he may be thinking about how he attacks afterwards. Like, does he even attack this Ancient Watcher at all? Oh, he's gonna go with Lotheb here. Wow, I am very curious.
I guess
you know what? This makes a lot of sense when I'm looking at it now, because if Lifecoach attacks with his Sunfury Protector and then attacks with the Twilight Drake and Demisha, he can put his Lotheb into the Ancient Watcher. He can clear up the Twilight Drake with the Bloodfen Raptor, and then he can Black Knight the next taunt that comes out. So this is actually like a tremendous amount of foresight that Amaz is trying to exercise here. He's not going for like turn-by-turn plays. He's not going for immediate value. He's going for big tempo swings.
Yeah, one other great thing about the Lotheb is that, of course, it locks out the Shadow Flame from Lifecoach's hand. Even though normally this board of 5 minions that was on Amaz's side would have been vulnerable to some AoE, he effectively shuts that possibility out. And Lifecoach, he might have been planning, because he had the Shadow Flame in his hand, he might have been planning to use that Shadow Flame to clear the board, but now he just doesn't have that opportunity anymore.
Wow, this is really smart stuff. So there's the trade. How does he follow this up, though? I imagine it's just got to be Sludge Belcher.
Even more taunts.
This is a turn also where he needs to consider Knife Juggler and Unleash the Hounds.
Yeah, you have the Black Knight in hand, but you also know your opponent has a Sunfury Protector in his hand. So you have a really hard decision to make. Do you really want to Black Knight something right now? And I think for Amaz, at least, the answer is no.
Would you like to see Lotheb attack into Sludge Belcher first?
I think if you don't attack into Sludge Belcher, there's a possibility that the knives hit in such a way that the Bloodflint Raptor can attack into the Sludge Belcher instead, and the Wolves can clean up the Twilight Drake.
A lot of different variations here. I would have liked to see him take a little bit more time. This is a really tricky turn with how everything can pan out.
Now, unfortunately, he won't be able to. I think one knife missed and went to face.
Yep.
And what that means is he won't get as clean trades as he really expects.
Oh, jeez. He's going to be staring down a Shadow Flame.
Oh, even more knives.
Oh, wow. Those are really nice ones.
And the Shadow Flame possibility is out. It's kaput. And what's so great about this is that it even plays around Molten Giants. Your opponent's not going to really want to put 6 mana Molten Giants when he's at 7 mana.
Hellfire is in the mix now, though. And speaking of Molten Giant,
if you Hellfire, you actually can play a Molten Giant. Or wait,
yeah, you can. It'll be 3 mana.
Yeah, you can. Yep.
Wow, he's using the Life Tap instead.
Well, you can also just play a Molten Giant still.
Yeah. I'm surprised he's life tapping at such a low life total.
I think his mentality here is if my opponent has 2 kill commands, then he has 2 kill commands, and you can't really play around that as Hunter. So all he can do right now is just play around that first kill command.
Dr. Boom is just about the best draw that Amaz could have picked up right now. And you know what? There's about a 0% chance that Lifecoach is thinking about Black Knight right now. I think Lifecoach is certain he would have seen Black Knight at this point, but he picks up Big Game Hunter right off the top, and it's because of that Life Tap. He dug 1 card deeper in his deck and was able to find the right mechanism for it. Heals himself up to 19, and Amaz is now down to 19. So the pressure is now all the way back on Amaz, and Lifecoach has basically all but completely seized control of this game. 2 Boombots are going to be running into this Big Game Hunter. Picks off the antique heal bot. Gosh, this is still a really tough position for Amaz, though.
Yeah, Amaz at this point, he can't really afford to play around Molten Giants anymore. He's seen already 1 Molten Giant from Lifecoach, so I don't think he's gonna He's gonna play. He's gonna have the possibility to play around the second one. The Sludge Belcher is nice though. It prevents Amaz actually from dying for a few turns, so it's gonna buy Amaz more time to draw his kill commands. But unfortunately, Life Coach does have the additional heal bots.
He also has silence available for the Sludge Belcher. There's going to be 2 copies of Iron Beak Owl in almost every handlock build.
Not only that, he also has the freezing trapped Sun Fury and just a normal Sun Fury, so he has taunts for days.
Yeah, he's pretty well protected. Outside of something like 2 kill commands, I don't imagine he's in much trouble. 8 more damage onto Amaz's face. He's down to 11. And Antique Healbot is all but going to close this game out completely.
Lotheb could also be the player here, because Lotheb also locks out the double kill commands.
Now, curiously, if he plays this Lotheb and he taunts up this 8/8, Amaz might actually have a little bit of leverage to get back into this game because of Black Knight.
Yeah, the only plays really that I see are the Lotheb plus Sun Fury or the Healbot plus Sun Fury, and Life Coach was just taking a bit more time to figure out.
And look at that. He's going to taunt up Iron Beak Owl just to be as annoying as he possibly can. And Amaz may be regretting not playing this Black Knight earlier now. It's stuck in his hand, and he is facing down what looks like it's going to be lethal. Even if this freezing trap hits this Lotheb, which is what it would hit if he cleared out both of these minions, he's still going to be taking 8 damage. I don't see the victory here coming from Amaz. Lotheb's just going to be able to get replayed next turn.
This is just so great.
Few draws end the game right now. Dark Bomb, Defender of Argus, Mountain Giant's not one of them.
Wow, Life Coach, wait a minute. No, there's no way for lethal right now, but still, just the heal bot kind of puts Life Coach out of the range of anything that Amaz could draw. Like a second kill command wouldn't do it. A beast wouldn't do it. And I think Life Coach is pretty much locked out this game, no matter what he plays. He doesn't know it yet because he could still think his opponent has a beast plus kill command.
He attacks the Molten Giant first, so he wants to play a cheap Molten Giant off his freezing trap, is what he's looking for.
I love that the Molten Giant is still 3 mana.
Trade off the Sludge Belcher here. Yeah, so he's just going to go for he's going for like the super safe plays. And again, just all but locked up for Life Coach at this point. I don't think there's a single draw in Amaz's deck that can get him out of this. Not even second kill command. He's going to scoop it up. Life Coach is going to jump out to a 1-0 lead. And Black Knight's stuck in Amaz's hand the whole game. Maybe things didn't work out the way he had planned with that Black Knight. It seemed like Life Coach was just really on point with knowing to not taunt up the wrong minions.
Yeah, I believe if he taunted anything else, with the play that he did, he just couldn't lose with any combination of cards that Amaz had. Plus, he played around Black Knight, and he was able to play around Black Knight, I believe, because he scouted his opponent, or his team scouted his opponent, and he saw that Amaz was running Black Knight in so many of his decks. We said prior to the series that Black Knight was probably the most important card in either of these players' decks going into the series, and I think we are correct. Even though Black Knight didn't get an effect off, it was certainly the key card that was being played around the most.
Yeah, the other thing that's really influential in that game is the timely big game hunter from Life Coach. Life tapping, despite the fact that he was on such a low life total, and digging that one extra card in got him close enough to big game hunter because it was drawn the exact turn that Dr. Boom would have been played. And if that Molten Giant would have had to crash into Dr. Boom instead, or if that Molten Giant would have gone to face and gotten taunted up, you would have seen that game go into Mods' favor, I think.
Yeah, it just speaks to Life Coach's experience with Handlock. He knew that because he had the 2 anti-heal bots in his hand anyway, his life total was a resource that he could use. He could bring himself down lower, even more, down to 11 HP, even though to bring him down to 11 HP just so he could heal in the following turns and draw more cards, more possibilities to draw that big game hunter in response to the Dr. Boom.
The other thing too is if you're getting yourself that low, your opponent may feel inclined to take more aggressive lines than they normally would. And if you trap your opponent into taking an aggressive line, you get a super favorable trade, and then you heal up with anti-heal bot. You can blow some people out of the water with those kinds of plays. Game 2 is about to get underway here. And Life Coach, like we said, his handlock is now locked. This is Conquest format. So when you win a game with the deck, it becomes locked. Not like last Hero Standing. The player who lost their deck does not have their deck locked, and they can choose any game going into the next game. So Amaz did not have to queue up Hunter here again. He chose to queue up Hunter here again, and frankly, I would tend to agree.
Now, Maz's hand not too great right now. He has a lot of his high drops, and he just, I think the key card in this matchup is really the Unleash the Hounds. Hunter, it needs a way to basically come back from a board early on, because the Mech Mage is the deck that I would say has the stronger minions early on. The Mech Warpers and Cogmasters just kind of overwhelm stuff like Web Spinners and Haunted Creepers. So I think a Hunter will need that some way to get everything back into the game. Unfortunately, Amaz draws both his traps in his opening hand. Definitely not what he wanted.
Now, I'm curious here if he's going to choose to coin out this Knife Juggler or not. He doesn't have any action to follow it up, but he needs to get something rolling eventually. And again, drawing 2 Freezing Traps is just not where he wants to be. But since he's drawn 2 Freezing Traps, is he going to utilize this to start getting something going for him now? So if he plays his Freezing Trap on turn 1, Lifecoach is certainly playing this Mad Scientist here. Now, the question is if he's going to use this Mad Scientist to proc this trap straight away, or if he really wants to try to get value out of this. So in this spot, Amaz is almost certainly playing Knife Juggler. So it's protected now by this Mad Scientist, and 2 things have happened. And number 1, he's taken away the tempo potential for Lifecoach to just ping this 2 turns in a row and then still follow up on turn 4 with a 4-drop. And at the same time, this Mad Scientist is checked right now by this secret. So had he played this Knife Juggler first, he actually might not have seen Mad Scientist, meaning that his Freezing Trap would just be delayed and give Lifecoach a little bit more time to find like a 1-drop minion to potentially proc it instead of the other way around. So I actually like that he's chosen to play Freezing Trap here first.
Yeah, the question right now for Amaz is how much does he value getting the secret out from the Mad Scientist? And I would have to say, when you're facing a Hunter player as a Mech Mage, you're probably not you're not going to value that as much, I would believe, because the Hunter just has ways to put down like a Web Spinner that you could potentially copy. Not exactly a minion that you want to copy, a 1/1 creature.
Yeah, Hunter's Mark also, this is not the right time to draw it. He needed that last match when that Twilight Drake was timed up at that 4/7. So he's just going to use Kill Command here. Again, he doesn't have much to protect other than this Knife Juggler, so he's just got to keep the ball rolling here. And he's going to use his second Freezing Trap to try to supplement that and hope that he can scale into his Savannah Highmane and Dr. Boom on curve.
Fortunately for Lifecoach, he does have a decent play now with the Mechanical Yeti. And I think if he plays Mechanical Yeti here, he might consider proccing this Freezing Trap with the Mad Scientist, because he doesn't want a situation where his opponent kills off the Mad Scientist and then there's still a Freezing Trap on the field.
What do you think the benefit of playing Cogmaster and Mirror Entity here is?
I think it's the problem with that, I believe, is that, again, like the Hunter could potentially draw into a lot of low mana minions like the Web Spinner, and also the Cogmaster just trades so unfavorably against the Knife Juggler. You don't even have ways to snipe down the remaining 1 HP of the Knife Juggler very easily. You have a ping next turn, but you don't really want to use a ping. You have a Goblin Blast Mage, but you don't have any way to activate the Goblin Blast Mage.
This is going to be an important draw. Second Savannah Highmane gets drawn. Amaz has no relevant play this turn. This is pretty bad news for Amaz.
Yeah. I guess the problem is not only his play this turn is way below average, but he's really going to be hurting for next turn when he absolutely has nothing at all to play.
He needs this Blast Mage to miss. Blast Mage misses! And this may be an opening window now for Amaz to get something done. Lifecoach cannot believe it. Wow, and that's the second Freezing Trap down now, so this Mechanical Yeti is going to stay put, I imagine.
Lifecoach is just incredulous at the result there.
Yeah. You know, if Amaz draws Unleash the Hounds here, he's actually got some really strong potential to get back in this game. Oh, look, he just can't believe it.
I believe the chances of killing the Knife Juggler are something like 60% or something, right?
I know, it feels like it'd be more than that.
I read this on Reddit one day, and I forgot the exact result, but it's somewhere between 60 and 70, I believe.
If I read it on Reddit, I definitely could take it for face value. Everything on Reddit's true.
Of course.
Yeah, Mechanical Yeti's not going anywhere. Lifecoach, I think, is still just frustrated at the result of this and going through the options of proccing this trap this turn and not. Wow, he's actually going to... Wow, that is like something else. I'm very surprised that he chose to do that. If he did that, what I imagine what it's a play against is trying to get in under Eagle Horn Bow before it's relevant. That's about the only situation I can imagine where that was the case. So Hunter's Mark going to come in here. This Lotheb is going to try to pick off this Goblin Blast Mage. This is a really important juggle that Amaz needs right now. Oh, he misses. So he's going to run into that Goblin Blast Mage instead. So not the worst result for him. He ends up a little bit behind. Annoyatron's a fantastic pickup right now.
Yeah,
Another Goblin Blast Mage. If this Blast Mage misses, I can't even imagine what Lifecoach is gonna do on this one.
Oh!
Again, he cannot. Oh, this is great stuff. I imagine this Cogmaster's running into Lotheb this turn.
Yeah, it's then the Annoyatron will get a lot of value by essentially blocking the Lotheb.
The only problem with that is when he sees Ironbeak Owl after he's run into it, and then he gets the upgraded trade on Lotheb. That's really where he sees an issue with this, so that may be enough to sway his decision because he hasn't played anything that warrants being silenced yet, and Amaz didn't play anything on turn 4 and Freezing Trap, so he may be thinking that's a possibility.
Yeah, exactly. I think we have to also bring up how important this Lotheb draw was. We didn't really touch upon it too much, but if Lotheb wasn't drawn, pretty much Amaz had like a Hunter's Mark play and Hero Power pass the previous turn. And in this type of matchup where it's kind of an aggressive deck versus an aggressive deck, every single tempo swing matters so much. And having a 5-5 on the board versus not having a 5-5, that's the like completely the difference between winning and losing the game.
Yep. So Lotheb's going to end up biting the dust here. I'm curious if it clears out this shield or not. I don't think it's going to, but I certainly can see the merits of doing so. Amaz is going to have some really strong turns coming up, so if Lifecoach can't put together a strong board, I think this game's going to slip away from him. But so far, he's got the lead, so I like trading in the Lotheb to get the shield down just to make sure that you can continue to apply pressure because his hand's just so strong. He's going to follow the Savannah Highmane with a Dr. Boom and then another Savannah Highmane. So every single attack that he's going to end up missing because of a card like a Annoyatron is something he really wants to avoid right now.
Yeah, usually the weakness of putting down a lot of big minions on the board is you could only attack a select number of minions of your opponents, especially if they're an aggro deck. But Amaz has Dr. Boom, a card that kind of splits its power. And not only that, he has an Unleash the Hounds to follow that up. So the weaknesses of massive Savannah Highmanes is actually tempered by the cards that he has in his hand right now.
Another tough turn for Lifecoach, too. Missing both these Goblin Blast Mages has really changed the way this game pans out.
Actually, just really bad luck from both players, to be honest. Amaz drawing both secrets in his opening hand and having to weave in a lot of hero powers in, not by choice, but just because he didn't have anything else to play. Meanwhile, Lifecoach, he didn't have the best opening draw either. Plus, he missed both Goblin Blast Mage shots, obviously.
Yeah. I can if Maz had drawn 2 Mad Scientists instead of 2 Freezing Traps, this would have been a very different game.
Yeah, almost certainly.
Yeah, so there's a big board presence that Lifecoach is looking for. So potential for a lot of repetitive damage here. And I'm curious if you're going to see Unleash the Hounds this turn in light of this giant board, because I don't know if it's going to get much more value than this. But it just doesn't really accomplish that much, though.
Yeah. If Amaz had drawn any card that he could have combined with Unleash the Hounds, like maybe even like a Haunted Creeper even, then I think the Unleash the Hounds would have looked a lot sweeter. But right now, if you just Unleash the Hounds, there's nothing else that you can do besides hero power. So even though... Yeah, go ahead.
The problem with not Unleashing the Hounds this turn is that he's facing down so much board damage. So if he doesn't Unleash the Hound, let's say he just decides to play Dr. Boom, for instance. He's looking at 9, 10, 11, 12, 13. He's looking at 14 damage coming across the board. So he's dead to Fireball if he does that. Sludge Belcher, I think, is probably his second best defensive play. I think Unleash the Hounds would have been a little bit better here, because if he Unleashed the Hounds, he could run 2 tokens into... Oh, geez. That is a huge draw for Lifecoach right now. He just needs a major presence, but this is going to run into Unleash the Hounds.
Oh, man. Even if Amaz Unleash the Hounds next turn, the problem is he won't be able to get a taunt up. Plus, there's no way for him to kill the Dr. Boom, especially since one Hunter's Mark has been used already. So, Unleash the Hounds might look good against the board that has 7 minions on the board, but in reality, how much damage is it really doing?
Well, it could do a lot more now.
Wow.
This is some serious stuff.
Yeah. Animal Companion is pretty huge. He could possibly get a taunt, a Misha from it, but I think the real winner is probably the Leok
Honestly, I think all of them are good. All of them give him a way to kill Dr. Boom.
Yeah, and if not kill Dr. Boom, at least the Misha will be able to prevent a lot of Dr. Boom.
Unleash the Hounds first is definitely quality. He wants to run one of these tokens and no 5-1. Now he's going to cast Animal Companion. This is important because this gives him extra dogs. Huffer gets rolled, so now he has a way to kill Dr. Boom straight away, and he can actually basically just clean up the rest of this board. This is like potentially the big comeback turn that Amaz needed.
Let's see. You can run the Huffer plus 3 Hounds into Dr. Boom.
I like Savannah Highmane plus a Hound into Boom.
Yeah. Of course, you run the Hound first because you want space for the 2 Scavenging Hyenas.
Yes.
Yeah, I like the Hyena into...
Oh, he's going to find out what spare parts he gets first. This is actually really clever, too. This could affect things.
Yeah, this is better. And you can't actually clear the board. You needed something like a Whirling Blade spare part.
Yeah, so he's going to take out Mech Warper next. So I think he Cloakfield. Yeah, Lifecoach, I mean, he has some stuff that's going on now, but he needs to draw some direct damage stuff because Amaz has put together a pretty... Wow. I mean, speak of direct damage. Amaz has put together, he put together a really important clear turn here, but it's a matter of, racing now. So Lifecoach can drop him down to 9 and then have access to 9 damage the next turn. He can actually drop him down to 8, with the Whirling Blade. And then have access. He can actually just finicky Cloakfield a Boombot after that, too, and have enough for lethal. I think this might have done it.
All right, so 1, 2, 3, 4. So that's guaranteed 10 damage already. And if he gets some really lucky Boombots this turn, he could even go for even more.
I'm pretty surprised he's choosing to take this line. So I imagine this is going to be ping into the other Hyena and then run the Boombot in.
Yeah, I would say so as well.
He's playing around double kill command, I think, with a play like this. He doesn't want there to be any potential for him to get blown out. He's so close to closing it out right now.
I mean, if I were in Lifecoach's situation, I would feel fairly confident to play in the longer game and just play more of a safer line.
Simply because you drew the Fireball.
Yeah, simply because I drew the Fireball, simply because I have more chances to draw other cards, and simply because I have these Boombots that could potentially deal up to 4 damage to my opponent's face.
Well, there's 3, so that's going to be enough, actually. Mirror Entity and then the Finicky Cloakfield. I don't know what Amazi's draw to get out. I imagine Sludge Belcher's is only out right now. He's going into 10 mana. I'm sorry, 9 mana. Wow, and he draws Sludge Belcher. That's so important right now. His opponent's going to get a copy of Sludge Belcher too, though. So not out of the water yet. Armor plating is actually pretty important here too.
Yeah, armor plating might force your opponent to actually use the Fireball on the Sludge Belcher. Oh, no, never mind.
He draws Frostbolt. That's just going to be lethal. Lifecoach picks up back-to-back burn spells to end the game. Wow. Whoa. Did Lifecoach just misclick, I think?
That's not lethal yet.
No, it's not lethal yet anymore. I mean, it's effectively lethal. You can see it in his face, though. Amaz is shaking his head. if Amaz could see the rest of the cards in Lifecoach's hand, he would certainly be shaking his head.
Oh, man. Wow, out of all players, I never thought Lifecoach would be the player to miss lethal, right?
Well, yeah, miss lethal is... I think he misclicked. That's what I think happened.
Okay.
I think his mouse let go while he was over it. The Amaz is going to commit Honorable Sudoku here. Lifecoach is going to jump out to a 2-0 lead. He's picked up wins with Warlock. He's picked up wins with Mech Mage. He's down to his last deck, which is Paladin. He's got 3 games to win with Paladin, and he's facing a Warrior, a Druid, and a Hunter. I would say 2 of these matchups with the way his deck is built are very favorable for him.
Yeah, certainly. At least the Warrior of Amaz's is going to have a lot of difficulty dealing with double piloted Sky Golem from Lifecoach. And you would think that Anti-Keelbot is kind of like a dead card against most control matchups, but against Warrior, it has a lot of utility in just getting out of Alexstrasza range, which is one way that Warrior can steal games away from Paladins.
Yeah, I definitely would agree with you on that one, but just 2 piloted shredders. Oh my, it's so much to fight through. We saw in the past how big of a problem Cairn is for something like Warrior. Now, when you have bigger Cairns, they're bigger problems. especially when they can't measure what the other side of it is, because sometimes the minion that Sky Golem could spit out is actually bigger than a copy of Karen would be.
And even if it's smaller, there's potential for it to be even better. For example, Water Elemental against Warrior, that's just the best you can hope for, right?
Yeah. Even something like Mogushan Warden could be really problematic if you intend to like shield slam something and then attack the rest of their minions. And say like just one of the taunts pops out. You pointed out yesterday how many different taunts there were in the 4 mana slot and what an impact they can have on stuff. All that sort of stuff can come into play, and it's just extra things for Warrior players to have to be thinking about. And when you're putting all those factors together, it just spells trouble for the person who's having to account for all of those things. So Paladin's going to be queued up here, and Hunter's going to D4 a 3rd time. He's got to win a game with Hunter anyway, so it makes sense to queue it up. You know, if you win here, you win here. If you don't, you know, see you later, and let's go for it. But again, this is a higher curve Paladin deck than we've seen a lot of players playing. So I would anticipate, again, a slight advantage going towards Amaz.
I think Lifecoach, or rather Amaz, in this particular matchup, he needs to really get a huge advantage early on, or Paladin's going to be able to stabilize with anti-Keel bots, and there's no way for Hunter to come back in that kind of situation.
Black Knight going to be a really important card in this matchup too, fighting against stuff like Sludge Belcher and Tyrion. And maybe even a taunt that a Pilot Sky Golem spits out.
Usually Black Knight is only kind of okay against Tyrion because you kind of have to deal with the 5/3 weapon. But if you're playing Hunter against the Tyrion, then the Ashbringer sometimes isn't as valuable, because if you try to cleave down your opponent's minions with Ashbringer, it brings you closer and closer to death.
Yeah. I'd actually, you know, you say cleave down. I'd like to see a weapon that cleaves.
That does damage to 2 minions.
Or more, like sort of like the Foe Reaper.
Yeah, the Foe Reaper weapon.
Yeah.
Nice.
That'd be sweet. What weapon would do that? Whirlwind Axe? You didn't actually play WoW. You don't know this stuff.
Yeah.
I'm disappointed in you.
I'm sorry. I've disappointed the admirable.
It's all right. It's all right. I forgive you, sort of.
Now, one card that was mulliganed away in Lifecoach's hand was the first Iron Begal. Do you have any, like, I feel like that's a card that you usually keep in this matchup, especially for the Mad Scientist and perhaps even Haunted Creepers, right?
I think it's a card that you're okay with having, but he also has Mind Control Tech in his opening hand, so he doesn't really want to silence Haunted Creeper. So Mad Scientist is really the only silence target left. And it's definitely a good one, but he wants to find cards like Muster for battle. He wants to find shielded mini-bots. I don't know if he's running Zombie Chows or not yet. We haven't seen his full deck, but we haven't seen a Zombie Chow from him either, I don't think. So,
and this is just going to be a perfect hand from Lifecoach. Truceover can take out effectively the entire board. Plus, he's kind of technically ahead on the board because he has a weapon in play. This is exactly what Amaz didn't want. He needed his opponent to have a slow start, because again, he's going to have a slower deck. His opponent has a much bigger deck, so he's going to be coming back from behind the whole game, and that's definitely not what you want to do as a Hunter player against double anti-Keel bot and lay on hands.
Yeah, not a strong play here from Lifecoach though. He has the option for Mind Control Tech, but it's just a 3/3 at this point. So depending on what minion comes out of the Pilot Shredder, really makes a big difference here. When you see a big win rate for Paladin, it's usually because of something like this: a direct answer to the first threat, and then a very strong answer like Truceover Champion to something like Animal Companion moving forward. Without these cards, Lifecoach is going to struggle a lot. With these cards, he's going to win a lot. So it's a pretty polarized matchup in terms of the beginning stages of the game and how they pan out. Noyatron gets summoned, and I think that's actually going to mean he's going to play this Mind Control deck here because he wants to get a little bit of threats going. But I can see Token also being very justified here as well, because it's going to trade into a Divine Shield.
Yeah, a Noatron. I can't really tell if that's really good or really bad for Amaz right now. It's not a very threatening creature, but it does protect against some certain threats, like it protects the Savannah Highmane that might come on turn 6.
In a spot like this, do you think he's attacking this Token ever?
I think you still have to be a little wary of Quartermaster, though.
That's what I was thinking too. So I think it's going to be Haunted Creeper, attacking this Token. And I think if you attack into the Token, I actually would prefer to see Freezing Trap. So he's actually going to attack face. So that makes all the sense in the world. Muster for battle is a good draw right here, but he does have to be considering, like, how much does Unleash the Hounds impact him right now? Like, if he saw Knife Juggler Unleash the Hounds, is he going to get back in this game?
And the answer, considering that Lifecoach does not have a Consecrate in his hand, the answer is probably no.
Let me think.
I think this is going to be probably a Sludge Belcher turn.
I think this is a fine antique Healbot turn too.
By not playing Sludge Belcher, is that just like a credit to Black Knight?
Well, he knows that Black Knight's in here. He knows that there's Hunter's Mark. The card that he saw one copy of late in the game was the Eagle Horn Bow, so he might think that there's maybe only like one Eagle Horn Bow in here. But that's really, I think that's the weak spot for NT Keelbot is Eagle Horn Bow, which Amaz happens to have. So, but Sludge Belt, these are really his two plays that he's considering right now. And there also is some merit to playing Quartermaster, I think. And just getting the 2/5 to the 3/3 out and making sure that you're not going to be soft to something like Freezing Trap and move forward from there. Sludge Belcher is probably his safest play, though.
Does he also proc the Divine Shield here? I think he might be a little greedy, seeing that he has the Muster and the anti-Keelbot in his hand. But no, I think this is worth it.
I think I would favor popping the Divine Shield. Again, you just don't want to fall behind on tempo. He does have 2 copies of the Eagle Horn Bow. Savannah Highmane going to be the drop.
Ooh, and Hunter's Mark.
This could actually spell trouble here. Amaz very, very diligent in playing around Mind Control tech here too. Had he run in his Haunted Creeper first, he'd have 4 minions on the board, and he actually wouldn't have been able to take out his Annoyatron. And this way, he's faded Mind Control tech. It's not a worry to him anymore, unless Lifecoach can kill both of these minions.
Amaz could actually play his own variation of Hunter's Mark right now with the equality, but let's see if he has any other plays. He can't really get Mind Control tech value out this turn. I guess the Shielded Minibot is always nice, and then he has the Muster for Battle follow-up. That doesn't really do anything to impact the Savannah Highmane, though, which is going to be an issue.
I think his game plan against Savannah Highmane is going to be to try to initiate a race at some point, using anti-Keelbot to buy himself an extra turn and trying to sway the board with Dr. Boom.
That's just that's so far from the typical paladin mentality, right? I think usually, like if you have like an Aldor in your hand, these Savannah Highmanes are just so easy to deal with. But right now, I think we might be seeing the Amaz rule come into effect. Have you ever heard of the Amaz rule?
Oh, I've definitely heard of the Amaz rule. I don't think it's going to be this turn though, because he's going to take out the Savannah Highmane. So when he's taking out the Savannah Highmane, he's looking forward to next turn, I think, in getting a Mind Control tech active.
Yeah, almost certainly. I think Amaz doesn't actually have 4 minions. He doesn't have a 4th minion in his hand right now, but it's very likely for him to actually draw one.
Gonna be saving the Unleash the Hounds, I imagine, for Muster for Battle. And I think this is gonna be Freezing Trap as well. Yeah, so just gonna start getting into the damage now. And a pretty big board lead. Lifecoach gonna be able to activate this Haunted Creeper this turn in Mind Control tech, but then he's gonna be facing down Unleash the Hounds. And that's a big Unleash the Hounds, and I imagine most of the damage is gonna be going to face for Amaz's side, because he's kind of down to the felt as far as the number of resources he has are concerned.
I think Muster for Battle and Mind Control tech is almost certainly going to be the play, but he has to be aware of his health right now. A 14, staring at 2 cards from the Hunter player that he hasn't used in a while, staring at a bow and staring at the hero power and just a lot of minions on the board. He's pretty much close to death right now.
I was just thinking about that, and he knows it's a Freezing Trap from what he's seen so far. So I think there's a really good chance this anti-Keelbot comes down with the intention of using it to proc the Freezing Trap. I don't think Amaz would let him proc a Freezing Trap with the anti-Keelbot. But I think that's something Lifecoach is really going to heavily consider this turn.
And truthfully, if you Mind Control tech this turn, you're not really getting that much value, are you?
You're really not.
I wonder. I must move quickly.
Oh man, this is just one of the problems with this particular Paladin deck. It doesn't curve out too well because it has such big minions in the deck. So you have these turns where you're kind of not utilizing all your mana that you really want. And we saw that on turns like 4 and 5 where or at least on turn 4 where Lifecoach just hero powered and he lost a lot of tempo in that one turn.
I imagine Divine Shield's going to get picked off here by this 1/1. Oh, wow.
Oh, is this lethal? Yeah.
Oh, is it 9, right? 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Oh my gosh, I just did make math totally wrong. I'm so embarrassed. Yeah, there's just going to be lethal. I'm just going to pick this game up. My goodness. I'm off today. I got 3 hours of sleep. And we've been casting this the day I woke up exceptionally early. Wow, that's twice I missed lethal today. That's so much more than usual. It's 2 more than usual. Unless you're coming from Twitch chat's perspective, which I miss lethal every game. But wow, Amaz able to pick that one up. And it's just, I think this is really reflective of how this Paladin deck is built versus Hunter. It's not meant to beat Hunter. You can build a lot of Paladin decks that certainly do so, but he's got such a high-end curve that he just never has time to play like the 26 to 30 mana worth of stuff that he actually ends up with in his hand.
You know what? I think Lifecoach is perfectly okay with that loss because I think he kind of built that deck not in mind with the Hunter deck that Amaz brought, but more with the control decks that are in the metagame right now, specifically Warrior that Amaz has in his lineup. You know, he doesn't really get much of an advantage from winning 3-0 versus 3-1. So as long as he takes out the Warrior, which is an incredibly favorable matchup, he's going to be perfectly happy.
Yeah. I think that's probably going to be the last one that Amaz chooses to go with too. I think he wants to see as much of this deck as he can before he gets to that point. So I would suspect he goes with
Druid.
Yeah, I would suspect he goes with Druid here.
On the other side of the coin, you know, Amaz is a very busy guy, so he's thinking I have to win with both of these decks anyway. Might as well get the unfavorable matchup out of the way. So if I lose with that, then whatever, then I'm out of the tournament. I don't use any of my very valuable time on this tournament, and just conserve his just time efficiency basically.
I like where your mind's at, but I think at the end of the day that Amaz wants to win more than he wants to save a little bit of time. So fighting for that extra bit of information is certainly something that I think is more likely to be on his mind. But there is a lot of respect. He did just tweet that he thinks he's a workaholic, so maybe he is just going to go with Warrior here and try to save some time. It's going to be Druid, which is also kind of a bad matchup for Amaz. So he's got to win with both of them anyway, but this is probably the one that's going to have a little bit easier time, at least is where the thought process is concerned. Most of the difficulty in playing Druid is what kind of Druid build that you play, and a lot less about actual in-game decisions.
I think this Druid is actually... I wouldn't say favorable, but I think it does all right against this Paladin because, again, this Paladin has the potential to draw very poorly because it's such a high curving Paladin. And then Amaz could just tempo out his opponent with, I guess, something like turn 1 Shade, maybe.
Yeah, turn 1 Shade on availability here for Amaz. Shade, I feel like, is a card that's a little bit worse against Paladin than it is against other classes, simply because so many times it accidentally gets swept by Equality and Consecrate.
Also, I feel like this might be one of those games where you don't want a turn 1 Shade because you really want that turn 1 Zombie Chow to contest a lot of the early game for Paladin instead.
Yeah. If he doesn't play turn 1 Shade, though, it means he can't play turn 2 Shade. Unless he wants to use Coin or for some crazy use Innovate. Piloted Shredder. Wow, that could really change things. So he's going to end up with a Coin here. So turn 5 Sludge Belchers are potentially going to be contested. But it looks to me like it's going to be turn 2 Piloted Shredder and then turn 3 Shading X Ramus.
Seems pretty good to me.
Outlaw Peacekeeper may have something to say about that.
Yeah, I think it's pretty clear here. Like, I guess Lifecoach is thinking if he hero powers, then if he plays the shield mini bot, then the Druid could have a potential of hero powering and Zombie Chow in order to kill the shielded mini bot. But I don't think you can hero power right now. It just loses way too much tempo.
Yeah, I agree. I don't think Amaz can. You know, if he wants to hero power, he could Innovate Coin and Shade. And I don't really think there's a big problem with that. I think that's a fine play as well. But again, it's really throwing off his turn 3 if he chooses to play it that way.
You know what's actually really interesting is that Amaz actually kept Black Knight his opening hand against the Paladin. That's like a very rare keep, I would have to say.
Yeah.
I think I've only seen Black Knight kept against stuff like ramp druids or very wall heavy druids, right?
This is sort of a really unique play in that Amaz is choosing to coin out a Shade here. If he draws a 5-drop, his curve becomes a lot better. But if he doesn't draw a 5-drop, this is a little weird.
I think this play just basically he's trying to play around Consecrate. Right now, if he plays the Shade on turn 3, he dodges Consecrate for the next turn. So I think this is all right.
If this was going to be his play, I think I would have liked to see him play turn 1 Shade instead. Keep some peace here. Well, keep as much peace as he can. He's going to just keep on beating up his opponent afterwards. Hypocrite.
All right.
Peacekeeper.
No No 5-drop here. No
Yeah,
3-drop either.
This was really my concern with his turn too. Is now he just has no action.
Does he mess up his curve even more with an Innervate into Piloted Shredder?
I don't think it's worth it at this point. I think at this point you've really committed to following through this way, and that this Innervate's going to potentially get stranded in your hand for a while.
What about is Savage Roar a consideration as well? I mean, you get 3 buffs, and you can kind of clear the board.
It's tough to say. If he Savage Roars, I imagine he's going to Hero Power along with it. It's like Savage Roar, Innervate, Hero Power, take out the Outdoor Peacekeeper, use both your minions to clear out the shielded minibot, and you're left with a 1-1 and a 3-1. I don't really like that play, though.
Alright, so just getting rid of the shield.
That's really interesting to me, too, because what he's trying to do is he's trying to force his opponent to attack awkwardly here. Oh my gosh, second Outdoor Peacekeeper gets drawn. So when Lifecoach like doesn't have True Silver Champion or Aldor Peacekeeper here, this is kind of an awkward turn for him.
Yeah, certainly. Or something like Muster for Battle.
Yeah, Muster for Battle would do a perfect job too. I think I don't like this in hindsight.
Yeah, there's just so many cards that the Paladin could have. In fact, 5 cards that we've listed already: the 2 True Silvers, the 2 Musters, and the second Aldor, that could make this play fairly unfavorable for Amaz.
Lifecoach really thinking about attacking face here. Something else I think is pretty much true to the Lifecoach theme is that he is using this time to think about what he does next turn. So that way, if he has to take a full amount of time to think next turn about what he does, that it really ends up saving him some time, or it ends up buying him extra time in the long run.
I think his consideration here is he wants more value from his opponent's Zombie Chow. Like, if he just attacked into Zombie Chow there, he wouldn't have gained the full 5 life. But now he still has the same chance to attack in the Zombie Chow, and he actually does gain the full 5 life if he attacks now. That's really, like, if that's what actually Lifecoach is thinking, that's really forward thinking.
I definitely think it's a possibility. Aldor Peacekeeper here looks pretty good. But so does just attacking the True Silver Champion. All of his plays look really good right now, except for just like Quartermaster and Consecration. Like his 2 different options between Harrison Jones and between Aldor Peacekeeper, because Harrison's just a card that's not going to get you a ton of value in this matchup. The True Silver Champion is going to help knock out this Pilot Shredder. There's also a chance that he just summons something really poor off of this Pilot Shredder. He could get like Vitality Totem or something.
Now, with this play, he would have been pretty sad if something like Nat Pagel dropped out. But other than that, I think he's pretty much all right with it.
I don't know. I think he would have been like really happy with something like Nat Pagel.
Amaz or Lifecoach?
Lifecoach. He just plays Harrison Jones and keeps going. So Lifecoach just favoring damage on the face, and I actually really like this. Now that you take a look at it, because his this Zombie Chow is eventually going to die. And what's a 1/1 Zombie Chow really going to do? He doesn't really intentions of making a token anyway. So picking up an extra card here. Sludge Belcher, not a bad one. But he's going to choose to take out this Outdoor Peacekeeper dealt 9 points of damage. And this wouldn't have happened if he would attack the Zombie Chow. That's really heads up stuff from his Lifecoach.
Yeah, and now Lifecoach gets exactly what he wants. And usually Lifecoach thinks a bit, but no, 6 mana Pilot Skygloom.
Yep.
This is what it's in the deck for. Why not?
Yep. This is also what this is in the deck for. Is this this is to contest stuff like this straight away.
Lifecoach is looking a little sad right now. But you know what? He does have actually the possibility of going for face and just getting that damage in.
I think honest. And he just gets in 6 more points of damage. He's getting pretty close to just closing this out. And Amaz frankly doesn't have that strong of a response.
Yeah, he has Keeper is going to be pretty nice. Something like Keeper, silence the Sludge Belcher, and then hero powering the 1/1.
stuff. You know something else he could do? He could attack his Sylvanas into Sludge Belcher. He can swipe away the token, the 1/2 token, which is going to clear out the 1/1, and then he can innervate and keeper his own Sylvanas to steal the 6/3 Piloted Shredder.
That's actually a really nice play as well.
A lot of different options here. I mean, this looks like this isn't even a bad Black Knight turn, but again, he's just considering how much damage he's going to take. So I think he's going to favor something that's going to clear up as much of this board as possible.
Yeah, I like your play a lot, actually. Even though it's seemingly very inefficient with swiping a 1/2 minion, just stealing a Piloted Sky Golem. Like, we talked about how great Piloted Sky Golem is, so why not mind controlling it?
Yeah, he's going to go with, oh my gosh, Baron Rivendare is what pops out of it instead. So when he makes this play, I think he's going to go with Innervate Sludge Belcher instead.
I guess this puts more tension on the board, and it's a more defensive play. And judging by what your opponent is doing, just going for face every turn, you have to be thinking that he has like some kind of plan, some way to deal that extra 11 damage.
Yeah. Lifecoach has bought so much damage with aggressive play here. This has been great stuff this game. Gosh, what a mess.
Baron Rivendell, if the Sylvanas weren't on the field, it might be somewhat relevant because we know that Lifecoach is running double Piloted Sky Golem, double Piloted Shredder, so Death Rattles are definitely in abundance in Lifecoach's deck. This is kind of just the power of Sylvanas, though. Sylvanas might have just turned the game around.
Yeah, this is tough stuff now. Lifecoach is really looking like he's suddenly in bad shape. Getting Baron Rivendare, I think, is actually really unlucky.
Mm-hmm.
If this Sylvanas steals Baron Rivendare too, there's a possibility the Sludge Belcher is going to end up making 2 tokens.
I think Baron Rivendell might have been one of the worst ones because you can't utilize its effect right now, and you really want to, like, you want a tough minion to blast through that Sludge Belcher on this turn. You've been like sending very aggressive messages to your opponent, but right now you can't follow that aggression up with a 1/7 minion.
Yeah, I'm just going to go with Hero Powers here and Aldor Peacekeeper. Where's this Aldor going? It's going on the Sludge Belcher too. So we're going to start chipping away at this, but this Sylvanas is liable to get some pretty decent value here.
So which one of these do you want to steal?
Well, I think he's putting Sludge Belcher into the 1/1. I think he's putting Hero Power into another 1/1. And then I think Sylvanas is probably going into the Aldor Peacekeeper. And then he's just going to be okay with whichever minion he ends up getting off the Sylvanas.
Mm-hmm.
If he ends up taking the Baron also, he's going to get 2 tokens from the Sludge Belcher. And if he takes the Acolyte of Pain, he's going to end up picking up more cards.
So either option is pretty good right now. And he has so many good follow-ups. As Amaz, even though you saw your opponent being very aggressive, you know Paladin doesn't have a lot of tools in its toolkit to deal that extra 11 damage.
You know, there's a lot of things he could do here too. Like, imagine if he had healed the Sylvanas also. Like, that's another possibility. And just attacked the Aldor Peacekeeper and kept Sylvanas on the board along with all the rest of this pressure. Because he wants to draw cards, but how many cards does he really need to draw?
Time waits for no one.
I think he also just, if he has double Savage Roar in his hand, I think he just really wants to draw that Force of Nature because just with these board states right now, 1 Savage Roar and 1 Force of Nature just could clear out the board immediately.
Yep. So Amaz is clearly upset with his steal here.
What's he gonna do? He probably got the, he got the Acolyte.
Yeah, I mean, you saw his facial expression. He reacted to it. So he had queued up his sequence of plays, and before the spectator client had finished catching up with it, we were able to see his results. So I'm curious why he's sad with taking the Acolyte Pain. It feels like it's such a good steal right now.
Yeah, it feels like the better of the two. If you had taken the Baron Rivendell, you would have left your opponent with the Acolyte and given him an extra draw.
So each Savage Roar right now is 8 points of damage. That's 16, 21, 22, 23, 24. He's got 25 damage available next turn. I don't really know what Lifecoach does. I mean, this may just be a lay on hands turn just to find options.
Yeah, you definitely, with this kind of deck, you definitely need these options. And this kind of deck really depends on getting something like an Equality Consecrate after falling behind on the board, or getting something like even the Wild Pyromancer quality, because we have seen 1 Wild Pyromancer in this deck so far.
In hands it's going to be, so no further play from Lifecoach this turn. 2 equalities being shown. That's something you don't always see in Paladin decks also. A lot of people have been trimming those.
Yeah, I think with this kind of deck though, like it's a deck that's higher curving, so it depends on getting back on the board. You definitely want those 2 equalities.
Yep.
Whereas something, as we saw from Strifegrow, it's a deck that Strifegrow's deck was lower
Lotheb gets drawn. Lotheb is going to shut out this game.
Yeah, even if Lifecoach draws the Consecrate, he won't be able to use it. So
Wild Pyromancer equality is the only thing that's going to sweep Amaz's board right now. If he plays this Lotheb. And I think he's thinking about whether or not he should attack face or whether he should attack this Baron Rivendare. I think he should just go for face. I don't see a reason to clear this 1/4 off the board.
yeah, it's not like Paladin has something like Reincarnate with a Sylvanas to steal minions, right?
Yeah. Yep, there's Lotheb. There's Piloted Shredder. 5 damage going for face, and this game has been all but locked up for Amaz at this point. I have no idea. I mean, Lifecoach literally has to draw Wild Pyromancer right here, and that's not going to do it. I mean, this is 2 Savage Roars with this kind of board is going to be way more than enough damage, so he's going to take his time and try to figure out the best he can do, but he's going to get the bad news next turn. And Amaz is going to tie this series up at 2 games apiece. Wow.
Yeah, I think it's really the curse of the upper bracket versus the lower bracket. The lower half of the bracket was all 3-0s, whereas the upper half of the bracket just had really very intense games and very tense games, leading to either 3-1s or 3-2s. And we're actually going to see the final game between Amaz and Lifecoach, even though it started off with a convincing 2-0 lead for Lifecoach.
Yep. So there we have it. Infinite damage being dealt by Druidling. Just in case you didn't have enough, there's a Force Nature to go along with it.
That's great.
Yeah.
Amaz's gonna looking to show the least amount of cards possible.
Yeah. So no reason to show 2 Savage Roars if you don't have to. 2-2 going into the final game from this. Paladin has failed to close this out so far, but he's got to win 1 matchup, which we have been talking about being extremely favorable from Lifecoach since the beginning, basically, of this when we found out this match is going to be taking place. Paladin with double Pilot Sky Golem versus Warrior. What does Amaz need to draw here to win? And what does Lifecoach have to do in case those sort of situations come about?
I think Amaz will. The best way for Amaz to win really is to get something like Acolytes of Pain early, kind of stop the board development from Paladin. As we saw from Nyria when he played Warrior versus Paladin, he got double Armor Smith, Armor Smith, Fire War Axe, double Acolyte of Pain, just ramping up into his late game. And then I feel like the Warrior actually still needs a bit more from that. He needs to Alex Strauss his opponent. He needs to burst his opponent down, because even if he gets all his cards in the long game, I think the Paladin still wins. So Warrior is definitely going to be needing to rely on those burst combos.
I would tend to agree with you as well. Some really strong early Acolyte of Pain starts too could really make things difficult for Lifecoach if he doesn't have the right combinations. So everything to look out for in that sort of area. Look, I want to talk a little bit about Fiery War Axe and how powerful it is in most matches, but against Paladin, I don't really feel like it's that strong of a card. Because of cards like Muster for Battle, Shielded Minibot, and just the hero power in general, it doesn't really feel like it buys you a ton of leverage.
I feel like the War Axe is really good against certain Paladins, like the ones that have Zombie Chow and Knife Juggler. But as we can see from Lifecoach's deck, those are not in the deck, and instead we have things like Acolyte of Pain, which it's all right with Fire War Axe. You have the Mind Control attack. It still dies for Fiery War Axe, but it's not something that the Paladin is going to play in the early game anyway. And then the next biggest creature is like... Actually, you know what? The next biggest creature is the Piloted Shredder, which is still pretty bad against Fire War Axe. So I think the Fire War Axe, even though it's not as great against this Paladin, it's still going to do a lot of work if he draws it.
Okay, so still a keepable card in the opening end, you'd reckon. Okay.
Definitely.
So Warrior versus Paladin, 5th and final game. Lifecoach versus Amaz. Winner moves on to the top 4, and the loser is going home.
Judging by these opening hands, both have gotten pretty good opening hands, and I'm actually looking forward to when there's an Acolyte of Pain versus Acolyte of Pain face-off.
Yeah.
And I think if that ever happens, it's going to favor Amaz because he also has the Cruel Taskmaster in his hand.
You know, we saw Lifecoach snap keep Dr. Boom against Warrior earlier in this tournament, and he's doing it again here. I was just about to touch on this. And what a great curve from both of these players right now. And it gets even better for Amaz. He's got Harrison Jones later to deal with stuff like True Silver Champion, or maybe pick up a lot of cards off Muster for Battle. We got ourselves a game here, boys. Look out for fireworks.
Yeah, this is definitely not going to be one of those games where one player just shuts out the opponent because one player drew poorly and the other player drew really well.
Yep.
Both these players got exactly what they wanted, and it's probably going to go into a fairly long game, like the game that we saw from Nivria versus Strifecrow.
Yep. That was a golden coin, by the way. So Amaz is piloting a golden warrior deck here.
I wouldn't expect anything less from Amaz.
If you guys have 37,000 extra dust to spare, this may be a build you want to check out.
Oh, definitely.
Wow, he's just going to go for shielded minibot straight away. This is actually really smart, too. It's going to deny Cruel Taskmaster possibilities. So Amaz is going to answer this with Fiery War Axe.
Yeah, really heads up play. Like, it's not a play many players or almost any players would do. Giving your opponent an extra card, who does that, right? But it turned out to be the correct play, denying one extra draw from just denying the Cruel Taskmaster, which probably would have been a better play than the Fiery War Axe.
Yeah, so now he's free to ignore this Acolyte of Pain. It's not a threat anymore. And Fiery War Axe able to start chipping away at this Piloted Shredder, but that's a lot of damage he's going to keep. Paladin doesn't have like the biggest reach in the world, though. Gets a second shielded minibot. Oh gosh, that's brutal.
Oh man, that's usually like one of the best cards, one of the best 2-drops in the game to drop off of Piloted Shredder. It's just overall so durable, and overall one of the most well-rounded minions.
Yeah, I'd really like to see Amaz just play Despite here. And get it set up for future turns. Like, you don't want to have to invest mana into this Despite later on. You're going to want to do stuff like Armor Up. You're going to potentially want to play Harrison Jones on some stuff.
How wary is he though of something like Harrison Jones though? Because Lifecoach is going to turn 5, and I believe Lifecoach does run Harrison Jones in his deck.
Well, I don't think it's still that bad because you can run your Acolyte of Pain into the 2-1, and if you get Harrison Jones, it's going to be clearing off a Divine Shield. It's going to be clearing off a 2-1, and you have another Despite to answer the Harrison Jones straight away. So I don't think it's like the worst situation in the world. And Amaz is going to have potential to get a lot of cards here. He's going to be facing down a lot of damage at the same time, but he's going to pick up 3 cards from this Light's Justice if he so pleases. But again, at the same time, though, he's facing down this a big board like this, and when this is happening, Quartermaster is in the forefront of your mind. When you see 4 tokens on board, if you see 3 tokens on board even, because the shielded minibot's almost certainly going to be going down instead of a token. When you see this many tokens, you're worried about Quartermaster, and every single turn you don't start to deal with these tokens is one more turn that Lifecoach has to actually find that card.
Do you think this is actually a turn you Harrison Jones on though?
No, I don't anymore because he's seen this many tokens. He has to deal with his board position now, and also Harrison Jones would burn a card this turn if he chose to play it.
All right. Amaz indeed goes with the Despite and said, whoa.
Oh my gosh, that is a huge draw for Lifecoach right now. 8 extra power added to the board, and he comes crashing in, and you can see Amaz is not going to be happy about this one. I mean, he's got to draw Brawl.
Yeah, this is also one of the reasons the Paladin versus Warrior matchup is so favored. Warrior can deal with the 1/1 minions that Paladin brings out, like just the muster for battle minions. But against 3/3 minions, what does Warrior have? It doesn't have something like Hellfire, right? It essentially either needs Brawl or it needs Geddon plus Whirlwind, and those are the only options.
This is one of the reasons why a lot of Warriors run cards like Explosive Sheep, is for situations just like this one. Amaz does not have that luxury right now. I have no idea how he's going to get out of this. I imagine this is... Oh, gosh. Oh, everything looks so ugly.
Are we going to see...
10, 11, 12, 13... He's facing down 12 damage here. I mean, if he plays Shieldman, he drops to 1. He dies to True Silver Champion. He dies to Defender of Argus. He dies to Consecrate.
Oh, man. Shield slamming recruits.
Oh, gosh, I'm cringing. Oh, it hurts so bad. Oh, no. Oh, geez. And Lifecoach has got Dr. Boom and Piloted Sky Golem to follow this up. This game is all but locked away for Lifecoach right now.
I would have to think the very obvious play here is the Dr. Boom, almost forcing your opponent out of the game completely.
Yep.
Not only because of the 7/7 body, but because the Boom bots are just... If your opponent tries to clear the board, he can just die immediately.
Armor Smith's not going to do it, and there's actually no way for Amaz to clear this board position. Wow.
No way, indeed.
Yeah, I think this is just done like dinner. You don't typically expect Paladin versus Warrior games to go this quickly, but that Quartermaster was a blowout.
And I believe Lifecoach actually only runs one Quartermaster in his entire deck, so that was an especially lucky draw, I feel.
So Amaz going to be able to go up to 6 this turn. He's down to 1 right now, though. I don't see it. I'm pretty sure it's a sleep off. He goes. Wait a minute. These Boombot hits. This could matter. Could it? We can muster for battles. No, it doesn't matter.
No,
Muster for battles
it
gonna be
doesn't
enough.
matter.
Yeah.
Yeah, the Light's Justice is just 1 over,
Yeah,
or just exactly what he needs.
The muster for battle shield. Wow, and just enough to finish it off for Lifecoach, taking this series 3 games to 2. That game went so much quicker than I expected, and just everything went wrong for Amaz. Muster for battle showed up early. Quartermaster showed up right off the top. He didn't have access to Whirlwind. He didn't just. God, I thought this was going to be like a long game where both players were fighting so hard for board control, but just everything went Lifecoach's way, and it was so heads up of him to run the shielded minibot into that Acolyte to prevent a cruel Taskmaster play that would have given Amaz a lot of card advantage and a steady board presence. And I think that was really the big difference that you saw. Aside from the obvious Quartermaster turn, that was probably the decision that had the most impact in the game.
Yeah, definitely. Another decision from Amaz was the decision to not equip the Death Spite on turn 4, as you had suggested. Instead, he had to use it on turn 5, which gave him, I believe, 1 extra turn for him to proc the Death Spite charge. Yeah. He couldn't clear the 1/1s on the following turn, which meant that they would be buffed by 3/3s by that top deck.
It's actually really unfortunate. Had he played that Death Spite, he would have been able to replace his Death Spite with his other one, and that would have given him the Whirlwind effect he needed. Yeah, so it's just really unfortunate that his development worked out in the way that it did. But that was a sort of, I feel, a testament to the fear of Harrison Jones. So I can't blame him for it. I mean, he had a very clear game plan in mind. It's just that Lifecoach had the range of cards that punished that.
Now, our next match, and I believe it's going to be probably the feature match of the day, is actually going to be Kolento versus Savitz, 2 titans of the game right now, and 2 of the absolute most accomplished players in Hearthstone ever. Oh,
there's no question among that. If you take a look at the majors these guys have won, it is 5 major titles between the 2 of them heading into this, and then a slew of minor tournament wins. And these guys have been dominant on ladder. They've been very consistent throughout their careers. This is a matchup you guys do not want to miss, and it's coming up next. Before we go to our break, I want to remind everyone that this is a charity event, and the charity benefit is for Child's Play, which is an organization that's going to help provide toys and games for children in hospitals who don't otherwise have access to them. So if you guys would like to show your support, you can do that. There's donation links in the chat that you can follow, as well as donation links below the stream that you can go through there and help show your support. Monk set our goal at $2,000 today. We've got 3 matches left, and we've already gone over the $1,700 mark. So if you guys can get those contributions in, you can show your appreciation. We thank you so much for everyone who's contributed and who is going to contribute as well. But keep that in mind. It's these children, they need a respite from what's going on in their everyday life, because I can tell you it's not the situation you want to be in. I've had some family members who are unfortunately not been in the safest side of things, but it's one of those situations you really don't want to be in. I feel for anyone who's in that position. So thank you, everyone, for your contributions. If you want to learn more about Child's Play, you can visit childsplaycharity.org. And if you have any feedback or anything you'd like to leave, you can do so. You can tweet using the hashtag Kinguin4Charity at KinguinNet. If you have any comments for myself or for Monk, you can reach him at liquid_monk or myself at That's Admirable. So we're going to go to a quick break, and we're coming right back with the hyped match of the day, Savitz versus Kolento. Don't miss it.